I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
What up, Militia? I mean Joe Grizzly. And when I'm not using my disability as a superpower to save the love of my life, I'm at the Grizzly Cave, watching movies, reading comics, listening to metal, and of course, crushing beers. And I am here to bring y'all my review of the new action comedy starring Jack Quaid and Amber Mid-Thunder, Novocaine. Novocaine is a movie that was on my list from the day I seen the trailer, so I was very excited to see this one. But did it deliver? Let's find out. This is Grizzly Grade Reviews. Nathan is a boring guy with a crazy disability that allows him to feel no pain, but his mundane life changes for the better when he falls in love with Sherry. And then his life takes another drastic turn when she is kidnapped by bank robbers. So with his disability as a superpower, he sets out to save her even if it kills him. This movie was great, and honestly, it exceeded expectations because I have been craving a pretty decent action flick, and this satisfied that and more. So starting out with the positives, Jack Quaid is great. He plays Nathan in this movie, and Jack Quaid is that actor that over the last 5 or 6 years or so, I've really been paying attention to his work because the guy's just good in everything that he does. He picks the best roles that fits his personality. And I appreciate him doing that because a lot of actors try to go for a bigger range right away and it doesn't work out. But Jack Quaid's staying pretty humble and he's waiting until he can get to that point to where he can display how much range he actually has, because at this rate, he's going to be just as good, if not better, than his father. And yeah, I said that. It's hard to say that the child of a famous legacy actor like Dennis Quaid can come out and just do great work right off the bat. Like, the guy has literally not missed yet. So when I tell you that everything that I see him in is good, that's not an understatement. Every movie that I've seen him in is good. And he is great as Nathan. He plays this character so well as the lovable idiot. He's kind of been typecast as that type of actor that does the lovable idiot role, but I feel like that Jack Quaid brings a little bit more to that than just the stereotypical lovable idiot, if that makes any sense. And in his role as Nathan, he really takes that character and gives you this person who has a very mundane life because of their disability, and they're unable to do the things that normal people can do, like simple things like chewing food, because he can bite off his tongue and not even be aware of it before he's either bleeding to death or choking on his own tongue. And I know that sounds very extreme, but it sets up this really good character dynamic for him because he is afraid to take that step in life. He's afraid to do all of these great things in life that normal people get to experience, but he doesn't get to do that. And it's really not until he gets to meet the character of Sherry that he finds out that he can never have a good life unless he takes chances. She brings that out of him, and when he falls head over heels in love with her and something takes that away abruptly, he is willing to go the distance to save her. And I felt like that was a very sweet and compelling character arc for this guy. Speaking of Sherry, Amber Mid-Thunder plays Sherry, and she is great as usual. I've been a big fan of Amber Mid-Thunder ever since Prey in 2022. I think that she was phenomenal in that role, and I have been waiting on her to do other things, and she's been in other things, but I haven't seen it. And it was really good and refreshing to see her come back into my field of vision by way of this movie. And I appreciated her character because she plays it just like Jack Quaid does. She's this very sweet, sincere girl that really cares about him, and you can see that they both have this connection that's almost instant. And I really appreciated that about this movie as well, that they were so well written that we can automatically connect with those characters and automatically feel sympathy for those characters. That sometimes these action films put that on the back burner, but Novocaine didn't. It actually brought those two characters in the forefront, and I really appreciated that. So bringing both of them together and giving these very genuinely sweet performances by both of them just gives us this automatic, like, it's an automatic engagement, because you both want these characters to succeed. You want them to be together and to watch their relationship develop. And it's a very interesting dynamic when that's all taken away from this bank robbery where she's taken as a hostage. So I felt like they did a very good job with that, and the cast did a phenomenal job of conveying all of that. I thought that the story was great, particularly the premise that this guy who has this really crippling disease that is not conventional, as in he doesn't have a disability, as in he can't walk properly, or he doesn't have legs, or he doesn't have the use of his arms, or he's paralyzed, or anything like that. It's just this disability that at any moment something could happen and you could be dying and you have no idea, because you have no pain receptors at all. You can literally fall and hit your head and get a massive brain bleed and not know, because you just fell, and when you came to, you're like, oh, I just fell and passed out. Let me go to ED. But at the same time, you don't know how bad the damage is because you didn't feel anything. Or the example that I brought in before was he can't chew solid foods because he could bite off his own tongue and not know. And thinking about that, like deeply thinking about that, that's very, very like terrifying. Not in a sense that you could die, but imagine never to be able to eat your favorite foods. Imagine never to be able to like ride a bike, or hell, go on a hike. Anything that normal people that take for granted every day, this guy can't do that, because if he does and he gets injured, he could die. No questions asked. It's like, how does someone go through life living like that? So I think when they add that dynamic in, they establish that, which is one thing that they really do well, is they establish that from the get-go, that they set all that up in the first third of the movie, where they get you acquainted with his disability and how his life is, and how he just is pretty much a hermit because he can't do anything. And I thought that was a good way of establishing this world that we're visiting in this movie, without it being heavy-handed. They don't spend too much time on it. They spend just enough time to establish that and his new relationship with Sherry, and I thought that was very well done. Then they bring in the catalyst for the story, where there's this bank robbery because Nathan and Sherry both work at a bank, and Sherry is taken hostage by these very violent criminals that will do anything to keep their identities hidden and to keep from getting caught. So the impulse of Nathan to just jump up and go into action to save this girl that he barely knows, but he's fallen head over heels, is very sincere, and it's very sweet, and it automatically puts you in a situation where you are like, all right, this is the guy I got to root for, and I'm here for it. And then they do it in an interesting way, to where he is using this disability as like a superpower, where he can go toe to toe with these guys and take this horrific beating, but he can come out on top because he can't feel any of the pain. And that was very interesting how they did that as well, because they could have went completely over the top with this, but they didn't. They kept it pretty grounded. Like, they didn't have him cutting somersaults and doing all these crazy martial arts and stuff like that. They literally did a great job of having it be the lovable idiot who can't feel pain, that is trying to save the love of his life, that is fighting these very capable people, and he's so like cautious because he doesn't want to hurt them, but he wants to stop them, and it's just very, very well done. I've said that like 100 times already in this review, that it's very well done because it's executed damn near perfectly. And they could have just used that disability as a plot device, but they don't. And that was something else that I really appreciated. Like I said, they keep it pretty grounded considering he does have this, quote, superpower because of his disability. And it's even more compelling that they did that while also hitting home the fact that in the beginning, when they established everything, that he could never have a normal life. So when he begins to experience a normal life and that normalcy gets taken away from him, he'll do whatever it takes to get it back. And it's well done. This movie has great action scenes. It's not like on the level of like a John Wick or anything like that, but I can say that the choreography in the movie is crazy good, because although I don't think it's on the same level of choreography as John Wick, in some ways it kind of is, because in John Wick and other action movies, you have capable guy versus capable guy fighting each other, or capable guy that's a little bit better, capable guy that's a little bit less than this guy, but somehow they fight and this guy comes out on top. It's not like that in this movie. It's Nathan is barely managing to cope with these guys, and the only reason why he is able to continue going is because of his disability and his inability to feel pain. So the way that they choreograph it is very realistic. Like, you got guy A who is like MMA-ing him to death, and Nathan is eating all these punches and trying to like block and stuff like that, but he's not a fighter. So it comes off as haphazard and very sloppy, and that's how it should be. He should be getting his ass kicked. He shouldn't be going toe-to-toe and rivaling any of these guys. It comes down to him overcoming their assault because of his disability, and then finding some way to dispatch these guys and stop them. And there was a couple of times where they did it very, very creatively, and I really appreciated that as well. And like I said before, they keep it pretty grounded. He's not invincible by no means. He could still die at any moment. It's just he can get stabbed or get shot or get bludgeoned by whatever, and he might feel the hit, but he doesn't have the pain that's associated with it. He can still die. He could die from blood loss. He can die, particularly one of his biggest weaknesses is head injuries. If they hit his head long enough, he will pass out and he will have a concussion, but he doesn't have the pain that's associated with that concussion. So it adds that extra dynamic, but it also keeps it grounded. So for me, it completely works. Probably the most surprising thing about this movie is the gore. Holy shit, I was not prepared for all the gnarly gore in this movie. And it's not like Terrifier levels. I feel like I say that every time I talk about how good the gore is in a movie, because Terrifier's kind of set the bar all the way to the top because of its cartoonish levels of violence. But this movie has realistic violence that is extreme. And there is a scene in the midway through the movie and there's a scene towards the end that are just like, holy fuck, like you're just not ready for it when it happens. And when you see it, the payoff is great because it really gets the audience to react to it. Like the one at the end in particular is like, oh shit, that was fucking awesome, because it was. The gore is top notch in this movie. And a lot of them are done practically. And I would almost go as far as say that majority of these are probably practical. There's one in particular that involves fingernails. Not going to go any further than that. That one's definitely done practically, and it is fucking disgusting. And it's done very well. And as a horror fan, you know that I love practical effects, so this is definitely going into positives for me. Moving on to the mixed aspects, the comedy in the movie is fine, but it does get repetitive. It gets to a point to where they're doing the same old gags. And that's par for the course. It's not necessarily a negative. That's why I put it in the mixed section, because it didn't annoy me at all, but it was the same beat every time. So it's not really a negative. It's just something that I noticed. And again, that's par for the course nowadays. Comedy has kind of dried up, and it's starting to slowly creep its way back, and that's something that I'm here for. The only negative that I have about this movie is it's a little bit too long. Not that it's like 3 hours or anything like that. It's not even 2 hours. But it's like an hour and 55 minutes, and I felt like that there are some things that they could have trimmed out. Is it this big negative? Not at all. It's closer to a mixed aspect than it is anything, because it didn't make the movie drawn out at all. It didn't hinder the movie's momentum because you were just slogging through it. It's just something that I did notice, that it was an hour and 55 minutes, and I felt like that it could have been easily an hour and 30 and worked just as good. But overall, guys, I had a fucking blast with this movie. This was, once again, another great theater experience that I had, where everybody in the theater was having a good time. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of people in for this showing, but I did go to one of the earlier ones on a Thursday at that. So there was probably more people in the later shows, but either way, the people that were in the audience when I was watching this loved it. They were all cheering and laughing and ooh and gasping and stuff when all the gore happened. So it was a good experience, and it's crazy that two of my best theater experiences of this year, and the pretty crazy 5 or 6 experiences I've had this year that have been great, but 2 of them had Jack Quaid in it, so that says a lot about him. So if you're looking for a good, solid action movie with some comedy sprinkled in and some great characters and good gore, this is the movie for you. So with all that being said, Novocaine gets a 4.25 out of 5 and is definitely Grizzly grade guaranteed. Go out and see this, guys. Well, that does it for another episode. Thank you all so much for continuing to support this channel and for having patience on me bringing these episodes out. Y'all are the reasons why I continue to do this, and I appreciate and love you all. But if you're a new watcher and you like this video, like it. If you liked it enough, please go and subscribe to the channel so that you never miss an episode. Also, please follow me on all social media platforms so you can get channel updates, movie news, and all forms of badassery. Coming up next is kind of up in the air. There's a newer movie coming out that's got Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins called Locked. Seems to be pretty decent thriller, so I'm going to go check that out. But I'm working on something else, and I have been working on it for the last 2 weeks, and it's coming together pretty nicely. So we got a couple of 40th anniversaries coming up for some classic movies, and a few of them are some of my favorite movies of all time. So stay tuned for that. And remember, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.